Holy fuck. Hello and welcome to a different style podcast today. So if you're watching this on video, you can see that I have a very injured leg. If you're just listening to this, you can't see that, but I'm currently using my leg brace to hold my microphone, which I think is pretty innovative. So 2 days ago, I was climbing with some friends and my partner, and I went for a big jumpy move because I'm a badass rock climbing gal. And I slipped off the hold when I was trying to catch it, and I just landed super funny. Hospital, went there, doctors said it's too hard to tell what it is. It's definitely not fractured though, we did x-rays, but it's so swollen that it's impossible to fully know what it is, but he said almost 100% sure that it's an MCL issue, and there's the possibility that's an ACL issue. So that's fun. But being injured has caused me to start thinking about something I haven't thought about in a little while, which is codependency. Because I live alone, and living with an injury like this is really fucking hard. I'm sure a lot of people have it a hell of a lot worse than I do, but I've been pushed to this place where I need to kind of reflect on needing other people and this relationship I have with asking for help versus being dependent on others. And so I wanted to talk a bit about my journey with codependency today and how I got over it and where I'm at with it now. So let's do that.
Welcome to the Busy Bee with ADHD podcast, a podcast about tools and strategies for ADHD, all while laughing at my very dumb but plump ass, Hayley Honeyman. I'm an ADHD coach and influencer with the goal of helping my fellow ADHD pals. Let's get into it.
I think I've always had codependency issues, and I think they started really young from childhood because I always felt like I needed the approval from somebody that I was doing good enough or that I was good enough. I used to love playing by myself though. Like I'd play with my Barbies and like my action figures and my Webkins and all those things by myself, and I loved that. But I grew up in a full house. I had two brothers. I was the middle child. And we were always doing something, so it was always kind of on the go. There were always people around. It was very, very rare that I had time to just spend alone. As I got older, going into like high school and whatnot, I was quite shy and awkward and pretty uncomfortable around people. And my masking got better and better as school went on. And I got to a place where like people felt really comfortable around me, and I had a ton of acquaintances and a few very close friends, and that's kind of been my theme throughout my life. My first boyfriend ever, I was I think 15 when we started dating, and I had such severe anxiety that I had a very anxious attachment style when it came to our relationship, and so constantly needed his approval, constantly needed to know that like I was good enough and that he liked me and cared about me. And that's really, where I started to see for the first time how I interacted with relationships, which at the time was really toxic and bad. And we ended up breaking up. Things happen. He seems to be in a happy relationship now, so all the best to them. I actually talked to his mom last year because she's a lovely woman and his family's wonderful. Weird little sidetrack there, but I think my codependency really showed up in my second like long-term relationship, which was a relationship I had for about 4 years. Ended up buying a place with this partner, but the thing is that me and this partner, let's give him like a random name. Let's go with Gary. Gary and I were best friends. Best friends. Like, we did absolutely everything together. It was really rare that we didn't do something together. We were travel buddies, adventure buddies. We played D&D together. We played video games together. We watched our favorite movies and shows together. We had the same group of friends, and everything we did was together, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing at the time. But what did start to happen for me was that when he wasn't in my control, I felt extremely anxious and stressed out. And again, this is a really toxic side of my life that I'm not proud of, but I found that like if he canceled a plan with me and like went out with just his friends without me, I would have full anxiety attacks and panic attacks and freak out. And the idea of like spending time alone was horrific, and I hated it so much. Keeping in mind, at the time we started dating, I was 18, I think, when we started dating. We dated until I was 21, 22 maybe even. 22. I was 22 when we broke up. Yeah, and so having a partner that you do everything with is really nice. It's great, but it didn't allow me the individual growth that I needed. That relationship provided a great experience, and it served a really clear purpose in my life, which was that it taught me who I was. Throughout that relationship, learned what interests I had, what hobbies I had. I went climbing with him for the first time. Gary, what a guy. Not his actual name, but it played a really important role in my life, was that relationship. Now, going into... I farted. Going into my following relationship with someone that I didn't have the same interests with. That was somebody who was a narcissist, manipulative, and liked to have control over me. My codependency issues completely flourished there, which, you don't want to happen. I became so dependent on him to the point that, he had me wrapped around his finger, essentially. Like I said, he was a narcissist, probably still is, who knows. And so we did a lot of things together, but we didn't have the same interests. And I was made to feel really guilty anytime I went and indulged my own interests, like D&D or rock climbing or anything like that. And so I slowly stopped doing those things and became more attached to him as a person. And we'll call this guy Jared. Sure, Jared. And he was for sure an alcoholic, had a weed problem. There were so many issues with him, but I didn't want to look at any of them because he fulfilled this codependency need that I had. He was okay with being around me all the time, and that fulfilled that within me. And because he was so manipulative, he was able to very well say what I needed to hear to get me wrapped around his finger, right? And he did a good job at that. So, that's fun. I was definitely the person that struggled to be alone. The idea of being alone really sucked. I actually had a job that I had to travel with, and being alone during that job, I cried nonstop. I hated myself. I hated being alone, and all I wanted was to be with my partner. I would turn down my friends. I would turn down opportunities because I just wanted to be with him. That relationship ended. Thank fucking God. I will say that. Y'all don't need to hear the trauma, but thank fucking God. So it's done now, which is great. And when that relationship finished, my immediate reaction was to fill that gap. Okay? I'm not super proud of it, but I jumped onto dating sites almost immediately because there was this hole in my life then that just could not be filled by friends or family, because I wanted to feel so desperately like I was needed by somebody. And I didn't have anyone now that my partner and I had split up. And so jumped onto dating apps really, really fast. Found a lovely guy who was also codependent. And that became very clear as time kind of went on because he was very, very clingy. Wonderful dude. Really, really lovely, really nice guy. Great with acts of service and fulfilling my love languages, but super, super clingy. And I was too. And so we just fueled each other's codependency. That ended so fast. And then I was in this place, my new home, living by myself for the first time in my life. In my life, I've never lived alone. And it was really strange. It was also really scary. When I moved here, I was terrified because it's a city where I don't know anybody. I don't know anyone in this city. I still don't know anyone that lives in this city that I'm friends with. And so there was a lot of fear around this idea of being here by myself. And, months went past of mourning and getting over my previous relationship, and I met somebody, my current partner, who is in no way codependent. He is the healthiest person I've ever been with when it comes to relationships. And like he had a lot of growing to do in the sense of being with a partner that has ADHD, is autistic, has anxiety, has depression, has a lot of things kind of going on. And he had some growing to do there, and he's done amazing with that. He never put up a fight about it, was always like, what do I need to do? And he did it. But I had deep, immense growing that needed to be done, which was learning to be an independent person, not reliant on others, but willing and able to ask for help when needed. So what we did is we set up a structured schedule. And anytime I talk to anyone that talks about codependency and is struggling, I absolutely suggest this. Whether you're living with your partner or you're living separate with your partner or without your partner like I am, setting up a very clear schedule is not only good for your mental health, but it will also help to structure and allow your codependency to slowly, dissolve away. And so for us, we made sure that there was 2 days during the week that we spent the evenings together, and then stayed over. And then 1 full day on the weekend we had together, which allowed me then a full day on the weekend by myself. And it allowed me 3 days a week by myself. That was a lot of time at first, and I was really scared about it, and I struggled with it. I tried to fill that time with friends and activities, which worked really well. And as time progressed, as I got more suited to this schedule, and as I got better about making plans, and as I got better about having no plans, I really started to see the value of spending time alone. I started picking up new hobbies. I started trying new things. I started watching shows by myself, which is not something I had really ever done. I started to be able to explore passions like content creation and do that on my own time, which I had never been able to do before because previous partners judged me and criticized me for making content by myself. And so now I've got complete freedom because I don't feel the pressure from anyone else because I'm not living with anyone else, and my partner's unbelievably accepting. And so having a really clear structure changed my life because it made that time with my partner super intentional, because it was like, okay, I'm only seeing him 2 times this week and then once on the weekend. I want to make that time mean something. And so we were intentional about how we spent that time together. Are we going out and doing something? Are we staying in and doing something? It required a lot more planning, which was amazing, and it gave me a clear idea of what my week would look like week to week. Which was really nice for my autism. It's very, very helpful to kind of have a very clear expectation of what things look like. And now I oftentimes prefer my own company over others, which is so bizarre in my head. I could never have imagined that I'd be in a place like this. I love spending time alone. Love it so much. I love cooking alone, which I never would have thought I would have liked. I love doing crafts alone. I love playing games alone. I love making content alone. I love watching movies and shows alone. I love being with my dog alone. Like, all of those things I loved in the past, but only because someone else was attached to it. I didn't like the activities in themselves. I liked that I was joined by somebody else. And so now being able to enjoy them just for what they are, it's amazing. And I truly have a new self-respect and love for myself because of how I spend time alone. So it's been a really, really cool transition. But now that I have this injury, the reason I've been thinking more about codependency is I realized that this transition from codependent to independent is I sometimes can struggle to ask for help when it's really needed because I have taken that mindset so far away that I, need somebody else, that in my head I'm like, no, I can do this alone. I can deal with it by myself. I learned today, because of this injury, I can't walk from the kitchen to the couch with a coffee in my hand because I need my crutches. I only just today started putting slight weight on my leg, and so it's become a little bit easier, but I can barely go to the washroom by myself right now. And so it's been really hard today, especially. I had a good solid cry session this morning at this idea that I can't do it. I can't do this by myself, and I need someone else to help me. But then the other side of me that's independent is going, no, you don't need anybody else. You can do this. And both sides are kind of battling and trying to figure out where is the appropriate level of accommodation that isn't toxic. So I had to have like a sit down with myself and really, really think about it, because I realized there were a few things that I absolutely needed help with. One, I can't clean my place by myself right now. And so, I have a cleaner who's really amazing, and she'll be coming next week. So that is, I don't even have to worry about that. Thankfully, I have people in my life that are available to walk my dog for me. And so I have help with that. Amazing accommodation that isn't toxic in any way. When it comes to food, there's delivery options, super easy and plausible. I also have friends coming over tonight, so I have people available to kind of help me with that. But a big one is I can't fully get dressed by myself. I've been wearing these shorts and underwear for 2 days now because I can't take them off alone. And that is really humiliating and feels awful because it feels so simple. And yet I can't do it because I can't reach the end of my foot because I'm inflexible. Those 6 months of gymnastics as a kid did not help. You know what? They didn't help. I wish they did. I want to be able to take my underwear off right now, but no, can't do that. And even if I could, can't get another pair on. I don't want to be free breezing it every day. Not really a vibe right now. For whatever reason, I'm also just more liquidy than normal. So you didn't need to know that, but I'm telling you because we're close. And so, my partner had to help me shower yesterday and had to help me get changed. And it felt so embarrassing, and it felt really hard because I now battle with this idea of like, what does it mean to be independent and able to ask for help versus what does it mean to be codependent? Because I never want to get to that place again. I never, ever, ever want to rely on somebody so much that their presence depicts how my day goes. It's a really weird kind of transition to make. And for the people that are currently feeling as though they're codependent, genuinely the best piece of advice I can give you is to set up a clear structure to what your relationship looks like, meaning how much time are you guys spending together and what does that time look like? Is it intentional time or is it non-intentional? Because if it's not an intentional time together, I don't know, what's the purpose of that time? I think why is a really good question a lot of the times. If you're just in the same space but doing separate things, great, fine. I value that as well. But it's different being in a space by yourself, working on your spells, making plans for yourself. And so setting up a clear structure like that, I think, is like number one when it comes to my suggestions about codependency. And two, recognizing that there was also for me this type of like addiction that came with codependency, which was I was for so long addicted to the dopamine I got from conflict resolution. And so I was constantly in my codependent relationships causing conflicts, causing drama because I was seeking the dopamine that comes with resolving it, which is so fucked up. And I think a lot of people can relate to that unknowingly. I don't think I'd ever really heard anyone talk about that before. But it's something I've talked to a couple of my clients about because they can relate to it. And that's a really hard one to adjust. It's finding new means of dopamine, because it is, for me, it was absolutely an addiction. It was the most satisfying dopamine in the world, was like resolving something. It felt so good, but at the cost of what? Causing shit for no reason? Ugh, horrible. And so a big thing with, solving that, because that was attached to my codependency in a big way, because it also gave me control, right? And that was a big thing about codependency is I wanted to have control on my partner, and I wanted to have control with the relationship. And so getting out of that was a lot of dopamine replacement, meaning getting it from different areas and different things, doing more exercise, more activities, spending more time with different people and not just my partner, having better food in my life. It required a lot of intentional additives of dopamine in my life so that I could stop arguing for the means of getting dopamine from the resolution. And I feel like a lot of people do that unknowingly, they don't even recognize that that's why they're doing it. They're like, man, why did I cause that fight? I don't want to be fighting right now. Of course you don't want to be fighting. You want the resolution. That's what you're seeking. And I think that's pretty common between codependent people. But I will also say I'm not an expert on this. This is completely an opinion and from my own personal experience what I dealt with. But yeah, so just been something I've been kind of thinking about, and truly I think the end goal, the purpose of this whole conversation is this idea of like, what does it mean to be independent? And I think for myself, especially now that I've had this injury and kind of understand, is I think independence is this balance between being able to value, love, and respect yourself and your time alone, while also valuing, loving, and respecting the time of others, as well as being able to ask for help when needed. Because with something like this, I need additional help, right? I need other things to get me through my days. Does that make me codependent? No. Does it make me rational? I hope so. Now, I usually answer a question during my podcasts, and I did have a question from a client of mine actually about, in the case of living with somebody when you're codependent, how do you structure or schedule that time when you're just going to be seeing each other? And I think realistically there are two main factors to that, which is food, because oftentimes when we're living with a partner, our food is entangled with one another. So, on our days off, our days when it's just to us, who is cooking, and for who? Are you cooking and you're cooking for yourself, or are you cooking and you're cooking for both of you and you're not eating together? But you can also eat together. I more so like to think of it as like spending quality time with yourself, even if that means like having an intentional bath to yourself, or going on a walk by yourself, or starting a new game by yourself. But I really see the intentional time of being alone as the most valuable part, intentional. Because if you're just like lying in your room scrolling TikToks, you're not really growing as a person. You're not really making any sort of like benefit to your life. So realistically, I think the best solution when you're living with a partner is to plan intentional time alone, for both of you, not even just for yourself, but for your partner as well, so that they can get shit done that they couldn't necessarily do potentially with you. So those are my thoughts on codependency. I now am going to hobble over to that couch behind me and watch TV and probably have a nap, because oh my god, it is exhausting to be injured. Who knew? It's also exhausting to just be. And that's the motto. Love you guys all so much. If nobody's told you today, I am proud of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. How the fuck am I going to get up now? Okay. Oh, I don't want to move the leg. Okay, you can do it.